All right, good morning to everybody. It is time to dive into the recent official Xbox podcast episode with some of the guys from Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, the team over at Machine Games who have been working on this. This is the next game I will be playing after I wrap up Stalker 2. I have the Ultimate Edition pre-ordered on the Xbox Series X, which means I will be starting on December 6th. In the meantime, let's take a look at this deep dive. I think this contains mostly footage we've already seen, but obviously we have commentary from the developers, and I'm a big fan of just watching anything and everything that comes out around this game. So let's take a look as I get my coffee
Games in this
chugged
podcast range
down
from E to M.
this morning.
Hello and welcome to the official Xbox podcast. I am Joe Screbbles, editor in chief of Xbox Wire, and I am incredibly excited to say that we are here to talk Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. You have probably already seen that there is a near 15-minute deep dive into the game, going through things like
Watched
story,
it, and it looks
combat,
awesome.
puzzles, and a lot more ahead of its December 9th launch. And with that video covering a lot of topics, I wanted to take that deep dive and dive even deeper into it. And that is
Nothing wrong
why
with that.
we have got Axel and Jens from Machine Games who have joined us. Thank you very much for taking the time. I know it must be incredibly busy for you right now.
A bit, but it's a pleasure to be here and be, having the opportunity to talk with you about it.
Oh, well, we're going to talk a lot about it. So
Cool.
I have been lucky enough to play 2 hours of this game already, which has been incredible. But for a lot of people, this deep dive might be their first really extended look at how this game fits together and all the various moving pieces that are there. So before we kick it off, I'd love you to give a sort of top line summary of this game and the various elements of it that people are going to get their hands on very soon.
Yeah, absolutely. So Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, it is a
Look at that.
first-person
Love it.
cinematic adventure action game, and it's developed here in Sweden by Machine Games in close collaboration with Lucasfilm Games. And the game is set in between the events of Raiders of the Lost Ark and The Last Crusade.
Perfect.
And one of the main missions with the game and the purpose and kind of one of the driving force behind it has been to make sure that we put the player into Indiana Jones' shoes. We really, really want you to feel like Indiana Jones. So
that looks good.
with every whip crack, with every shot fired from your revolver, and with every punch to an enemy face, we really want you to feel like Indiana Jones.
So what I really need to do is
And it
go
really does.
rewatch the
And
films.
I think you'll get a real sense of that
in
as we go
preparation.
through. So kicking off this video, we start with this cutscene that seems to lead us into an action segment that looks to be just kind of a moment after a puzzle has been solved. So can you tell us where we are here and how we've got to this place?
Well, I don't want to spoil too much. Like,
Please
there's some
don't.
sand going on around here, so maybe you can figure out that this is sort of the more deserty part. But this is a very special moment in the game. It's one of those places where Indy finds himself in these kinds of ancient places. And I love this part of him, like, turning away as he destroys this really ancient artifact for whatever reason. There's a lot of going on here that makes sense as you play through the story, but it's one of those really indie moments in the game that kicks off this series of events that are very indie-like.
This is a good example when it comes to the type of environments and which type of settings that you can be expected to come across throughout the entire game experience. Mysterious places that get your brains spinning and your the cogwheels ticking. Like, what is this? What happened here? And most of all, how do I get out of this mess that I now ended up in? So it's a good example on some of the very spectacular events that you will find yourself in the game.
And we all often talk about this game as being adventure first and everything. And this particular scene is interesting because, it's adventure, but at the same time, we have these action elements that are so important for Indiana Jones, setting off this trap that gets the adrenaline going.
I think it's super interesting, as you say, like, so many games have that idea of like, this is a puzzle section, this is an action section. That feels like such a seamless segue from clearly a puzzle has been solved, and then we're into this moment of action out of nowhere, and that kind of unexpected element, which does feel more like cinematic, because you wouldn't have chapter headings that said this is now a puzzle. So yeah, I think that's it's a really nice way of kind of showing that off. Here we see Marshall College. This is a hallmark of a classic Indiana Jones story, but this is a very specific point in the timeline, as you said. So we have a lot of very traditional ideas about Indy, but who's this Indy? Are there specific things about this point of time for the character that are defining him in your game?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. I think there are two ways that you can answer this, or like there are two portions to the answer that at least I can try to cover a bit. One of them is that we portray the Indiana Jones as the world gets to see him basically for the first time, as he gets presented to the world in Raiders of the Lost Ark. That's where we've been looking most heavily in terms of reference and inspiration, to try to capture that version of the beloved character. You know, he's a very human. He's teacher. He's at the same time he's also kind of a superhero, but maybe not with superpowers. You know, but this kind of action man. And at the same time, there's this great warmth and depth with him as a
That
character.
lighting, the hero lighting
And
from the
all of those
right side of his face is
components
great.
and character traits is what we've been trying to portray and push forward. And that's like one part of the answer. We want you to experience that. But on the other hand, we also have, obviously we're making a game, we're not making a movie. So we have player agency and we have the freedom of choice. So you want to make sure that the Indiana Jones that you will experience as a player is the Indiana Jones you want to experience, right? So if you prefer to be more towards stealth, or if you want to go more brawling and you know, fighting with your bare knuckles more, or even, you know, pull out your revolver a little bit more from time to time, that's perfectly fine, because that's what we want to make sure that you as a player experience, your own Indiana Jones experience.
It is the kind of approach we have to development here at Machine Games, very much like, you know, starting off with the story, starting off with the character. What would you want to do being in this queues here? And you know, that's why we have puzzles in the game, because it's something we feel fits into the universe in Indiana Jones, and something you want to do as a player. So everything spins off from there throughout.
Yeah, and I mean, and talking about balancing, Joe,
I can't wait for the haters from Dragon Age Veilguard to like come here and try to complain about puzzles.
In between, you know, how much gunplay should there be? How the length
and the
of
people
the
who hated
puzzles,
Star Wars
you know,
Outlaws for the
how long
stealth
are the
elements to complain about the stealth elements
when
here.
you allow for certain type of game mechanics, and
I already
getting
saw
that kind of balance right has obviously been a lot of tweaking and hard work from everyone within the team.
I am going to pause it here because I already saw someone pushed a video out last night, this morning, which it literally, the title is, I think it's a skeptical look at Indiana Jones. Like, people are already trying to like pull this game down with negativity, and it's just like, shut up and go enjoy the 5-year-old version of yourself again. Try to find that 5-year-old child inside of you who loved video games, who loved Indiana Jones, who loved Star Wars, who loved Star Trek. If you can't find that 5-year-old inside of you anymore, stop playing video games, because the rest of us really want to have fun. I'm looking forward to this game. I don't know, the puzzles are going to be great. Indiana Jones is going to be great. I love the fact that you can go stealth if you want to, go brawler if you want to, go pistol if you want to. Choose the way you want to play it. Have fun.
In terms of coming to the game itself, we just saw a section of the Vatican, which was a section of the game I got to play a few weeks ago. And something really occurred to me while I was playing, which is, despite being linear in inverted commas, it felt very open to how I wanted to get to that objective in a way that I really wasn't expecting. So was the design idea here, you're kind of giving people a place to get to, but giving them the freedom to get there in the way they want to?
Absolutely. And as you say, like there's a wide range of, you know, from strictly linear roller coaster rides to these very open sections. Exploration is really important even in the most linear sections of the game, it's something we want to reward the player with all the
Well,
time.
I've seen the adventure points that you
And we
get for going
designed the
off the
game
beaten
around
path,
that because
so
he is an explorer as a character,
ways
and
to
we like
maximize
that
your
in terms
character
of game
doing
design
side
as well.
quests.
So it's important.
And it also ties in, very tightly with one of the core focuses that we had was to make sure, that's why we're talking that this is an adventure action and not an action adventure. If you're start to dissect the aspect of adventure, what is that? Obviously a big part of adventure is exploration. Getting the sensation that you are actually, uncovering and discovering secrets
Oh, that looks good.
and hidden gems throughout the entirety of the experience. So there's a lot of win-win with that setup.
Yeah, that's the thing. I felt almost like naughty for not doing it the way it wanted me to. I was like, well, I'm just going to try climbing up these battlements and jumping onto a zip line instead of fighting all these guys. And it worked. And I was like, well, that is really nice. We're seeing a lot of puzzles here. One thing that I'd love to ask is, how do you design a video game puzzle that feels right for Indiana Jones? Like, what is that? What is the vibe that you have to capture while still making it an interesting thing to play?
It's something we had to figure out throughout the development. It's puzzles is actually something that Machine Games and the team as a whole has not too much experience with. So figuring out what that was for this game, that was an interesting journey, and where we ended up with is a really broad variety of what puzzles are. Doing puzzles in a big game that's trying to be both challenging and accessible at the same time is a challenge, right? How do we make sure the players don't get stuck? So we had to work out puzzles that could be challenging. At the same time, we need to make sure there's a way for players who doesn't necessarily want to.
They look awesome, but you already know because there's already people complaining
and all that kind of
about them.
stuff. So
It's
having
ridiculous.
a really robust hint system built into
I'm
it
gonna
as
have
well was really important.
I love
so
Indiana
a lot
Jones.
of effort and work has gone into getting all those components to gel.
Yeah, obviously we see puzzles and traps in the movies, right? And most of the time that's like pulling a lever or stepping on a pressure plate and something gets triggered. But when you start to expand on that and making a video game out of it, like what is actually leading up to that, or what happens if that lever is broken and you need to find, another part to make it work. And I think one of the beauty that has happened throughout the, the entire puzzle work with the puzzle team and the designers is that the puzzle has almost got their own life. It's like an entity within the game and it spreads out. It's not only you going into a room. It's like, oh my God, here's a wall with some cogs and I need to solve it. Yes, sometimes we have those scenarios also, but sometimes the puzzle just expands so much more and you need to, run some distances to find clues or collect things to put you in a position to solve it. And I think that's why some of the more larger puzzles that we have now in game is very rewarding because it puts you on a path and it forces you to platform around and actually dissect the environment and use your head. And so I think some of them are very rewarding now towards them.
I think one of the things that's definitely worth pointing out, and it's made clear in here, but getting your hands on the game, you really see it, is that the kind of the delineation between the main quest puzzles and optional puzzles. And in the Giza section, I was practically tripping over tombs without realizing that there was another puzzle. Like there was a bit where I thought I was crawling into a back entrance to a main story quest, and actually, oh no, it's a whole other tomb with a different puzzle in it, which is incredibly satisfying in terms of exploration. Like it's always nice to find more stuff. But I wondered how you think around, especially with your ideas of challenge and accessibility, can optional puzzles get harder because people don't have to complete them? Do they have to be smaller because they're optional, or do you have large scale optional puzzles that people can find? Like, how did you think about bringing both those sides together?
No, exactly what you're saying. Like we have a substantial part of the game that is optional, especially for the open sections.
quick commercial break, everyone, to celebrate and give thanks to all of these amazing people who keep me on the air full time. Really appreciate the support. All you got to do is join as a member. You get access to private videos. You can also do super thanks on any upload or super chats and stickers on any live stream or premiere you see. And beyond that, don't forget we're multi-streaming over on Twitch now, so you can support over there as well. Thanks so much to everybody. Let's get back to the video at hand.
If you keep your blinds on, you can go through those and just experience, a third of the major content there, or even less. There's plenty of stuff to stumble on.
That's good to hear.
Finding a mystery around every corner was kind of one of the things that we wanted. We wanted to give you that feeling that there are things to discover if you just look, and not only small things that you say. There are big pieces of content that you wouldn't encounter unless you go off the beaten path.
Right. And we've talked a lot about the adventure, so let's talk about the action, stealth and combat, which, that's a lot of your minute-to-minute play in this game. One thing that really struck me when I was playing, and I think you kind of see an element of here, is combat initially in the early stages was a lot harder than I thought it would be. Like the melee combat and really getting your head around not being hit as much as hitting feels like a key part of that. It was a big part of your thinking here, sort of fighting smarter rather than harder in that sense, or at least until you get some of those skill book upgrades later on?
Well, it's about the character again, right? Coming back to like, what would Indy do? What would you do as Indy? So it's about setting the right expectations for the player. This is not a game where you just rush straight into a group of enemies and expect to take them down. You are not a superhero. So
No,
stealth is going to be the starting point for a lot of different scenarios in this game. But it's indie. The majority of the combat in this game is going to be hand-to-hand, using your whip and using the items around you to overcome these situations you put yourself in.
I love the items around you element as well. That idea that almost everything, or at least everything I think I came across, was a distraction or a weapon. And that kind of idea of things going wrong and just being like, well, I've got this bottle that I was going to try and distract this guy with. I might as well throw it at his face.
It ties into like another important aspect of the game, or of the IP, which is humor as well. Yeah. Because if you don't have humor within an Indiana Jones product, I don't think it would really feel like Indiana Jones. So it's an important beat that we've been trying to massage into throughout the entire production cycle, and we have that represented in many different aspects. Obviously, in VO, in cutscenes, and how people move and animate, but obviously also in the minute-to-minute gameplay, just to make sure that we capture that kind of not fully slapstick, but it needs to have a sensation of humor even in the fighting. And yeah. You can hear some fantastic lines from Indy, played by Troy Baker, as he has fun remarks on the enemies going down. That's Professor to you, as he knocks them out. It just adds to the whole combat experience.
And then you've got the whip as well. And one thing I noticed here that I definitely didn't notice while I was playing is it feels like the whip is sort of location specific in combat where you hit people. So it looks like you can disarm people, you can pull them over.
Yes, you can absolutely. You can whip prep people in the face and they react to that, or you can disarm them. Basically, in combat, you
pull them.
Yeah, in combat you have two options to use the whip. You can crack with it, or you can attack with it, and you can attach to enemies and pull them into this kind of hand-to-hand combat clinch mode, as we call it, grab mode.
You will encounter throughout the game that, depending on what type of opponent you have in front of you, they will also react differently if you try to whip pull them. If it's a small soldier or maybe a very large soldier, they will have different type of strength and also react differently when you're trying to do the same type of action.
That's great. And I think one thing that really strikes as you watch this footage is how little stuff is on the screen beyond the game itself.
Oh, the HUD.
That feels like a very conscious decision to, again, you're looking through Indy's eyes, and so you don't want to distract. Was that kind of philosophy going in there?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that we have a tradition at MG to always try to minimize the amount of HUD and UI elements on the screen. I mean, we love to get as immersed into the experience as possible. The more things you have on screen, it kind of breaks that immersion a bit, and obviously you can't have it completely HUDless. I mean, you can maybe, but we don't have that for this game. So at least trying to get it down to a minimum has been one of the focuses. And
Ooh,
I
stick of
think that we
dynamite.
have a nice balance now towards the end where we have the essentials, the necessary pieces of information is there for you to be able to understand the mechanics and
Don't like
perform
spiders.
accordingly. But it's absolutely a design choice, and that ties into becoming the character and being immersed into this world of indie.
It's of course a preference for us as a developer, but I also think in many ways it's just good design. You want to show the stuff that's relevant. So it's about showing what's crucial and only that.
And I mean, it's also one of the big challenges trying to make sure when we're talking about play navigation and HUD and UI as well, to make sure that the game is informing you or helping you understand where to go, where to look, without potentially having neon signs blinking this direction, please.
Yeah, it feels like it plays into the fact that we're in such an analog world as well. This is this is a place without technology that we have
No
now,
GPS,
so
baby.
it does make more sense that you have to pull out a physical map and have a look at it rather than a mini map being on your screen at all times. He's not wearing like a Space Marine's helmet or something, so that really fits. And I think that's one of the things that I came out of, particularly the open section, really loving, is that feeling of I'm in this place.
It's
I
going
need
to
to
trigger
look down
so
at
many
my
people
map. I
that
need
there's
to
not
look
a
up and
mini
make
map.
sure I'm looking at the thing I think I am and how to get from place to place. It really feels like you're using that to make people learn those open areas and understand where they are more intuitively than you might do if there are markers on the floor or a mini map pointing you in the right direction. Was that the thinking there?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like minimap is sort of core to what we don't want. And I know that's that's been talked about generally in terms of design. You don't if you put a minimap on screen, that's the thing that people are looking at. We don't want we have beautiful art. It's a wonderful world to explore. So of course we want people to look at that. That's why we like our feature, like with the camera, for example. It has you look at the world rather than look at UI or prompts or whatever. We track all the progress in the game in the journal, and it's a beautiful journal. And it starts empty and you fill it out, so it's your journey throughout the game. It's all
so
part
cool.
of the world and your experience. So it's that kind of marriage between the player experience and what you see in the game is really important.
And those physical maps we're talking about, I mean, it fits nicely with the concept of having a physical journal that actually holds the information, that you gather, and you, as Jens said, you're building up your adventure. You start
So
with
it acts
blank,
as a
and then as you
map tracker
progress,
too
it
in
will
your
get
journal.
filled with scribbles, with notes, with pictures, with photos, with letters, with postcards, with small tickets, hints and pieces. You slowly start to like puzzle together or getting the whole picture of like this adventure that you're on. And that ties in so nicely with kind of the aspect of making sure that this feels like a grounded experience. You are in the world. And I think that's an really important part of it, that you're part of this world now. You're Indiana Jones.
Here's a really dorky question I just thought of. When you've got the journal, do you have to consult with someone about what Indiana Jones's handwriting looks like?
We just decided.
I mean,
more or less.
One of the beautiful aspects of working together with Lucasfilm Games is they are, of course, like the experts on Indiana Jones. We've been granted access to their archive to able to see, peek behind the curtain basically of all concepts and photos from the earlier movies. And obviously all of these things are vetted and run through Lucasfilm Games also in this continuous collaboration. So
but the good thing is, of course, that they understand that this is a game. There are things that we need to do that they don't necessarily do in the movies, and vice versa.
So we've talked about a lot of stuff today. There is a lot more to talk about that we haven't had time to get to. One thing that we haven't talked about really at all is the breadth of locations in this game and how many places we're going. We see a lot of them in here, some that people have played and press and media already, and some that they haven't. But I wanted to ask a sort of teasy question, if you're able to answer it, which is, Are there more places we haven't seen that will be going in this game?
No, we have shown everything there is in the game. There's nothing more to explore. It's done and over. No, jokes aside, yeah, absolutely. There's plenty more that we haven't shown, and without being giving away too much spoilers, we have put a lot of focus on trying to make sure that the entirety of the experience throughout the game is supposed to have this very interesting, pacing, a visual pacing, a gameplay pacing, location pacing. So, I mean, the focus has been to try to make sure that it's something new and refreshing within each new environment that you will stumble upon.
That is very exciting. I'm very interested to see where else we could go.
Cool.
Obviously, we see a lot of Indy, as you would expect, in this deep dive, but we also see Gina throughout, who is a companion character that's looking for her sister. I'm sure you don't want to give away too much of the mystery around that particular quest, but what can you tell us about Gina and her part in this story, and also the story of the various allies we see in here as well, who we don't get introduced to in the same way?
Absolutely. I mean, Gina is super interesting as a character throughout the entire game, and she has her own story arc. She, as you say, there's something with her sister missing. There's interesting and mysterious beats to her story arc that you need to unravel as you play throughout. And she's not just the sidekick that runs along. She has a very important part of this story that we're telling. Obviously, she's played by Alessandra Mastronardi, fantastic actress that we've been working closely with, obviously, throughout the entire production. And it's been, really amazing seeing the character of Gina being portrayed and written, obviously on paper, but then presented to Alessandra, and how she has taken that character portrayal and just, fully expanded and making it into a really, really cool character. And seeing her playing, with against Troy Baker, that plays Indiana Jones, of course, has been very, very rewarding and fun. And other characters in the game, the best villain so far, I think, Machine Games have ever done was.
It's amazing.
He looks
amazing.
great. He looks
very, very scary and nasty.
phenomenal.
Played by Marios Gavrilis, also amazing talent. And I think that, it's a lot of the quality that we see in the portrayal of these characters is obviously, thanks to all of these amazing talents and actors that we had. We have Locus, played by Tony Todd, also, amazing performance. It's been a pure bliss to see them in the mocap studio and running around and doing all the crazy actions that they're doing.
I think having a high bar for a Machine Games villain in particular is, I'm very much looking forward to seeing how that plays out. That is about all we have time for. I want to say a massive thank you for taking the time, especially so close to launch. Axel and Jens, thank you so much for joining us and offering up so many juicy details as we went through. And Indiana Jones and the Great Circle is launching for Xbox Series X and S, Windows PC, and Game Pass on December 9th. If you pre-order the premium or collector's editions, you can start playing 3 full days early, which I will 100% be doing.
I did it as well, sir.
All that's left to say is thank you, good luck with the launch. Cannot wait to see more of this. And look forward to Indiana Jones and the Great Circle.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.
So yeah, guys.
Day one with
I am prepped and ready to go. I have this obviously already ready to go on my Xbox. We're gonna be doing December 6th is when I will be kicking off my adventures into the world of Indiana Jones, and that panel didn't have a background yet, so we're not skipping to that one. I cannot wait for this game. I've been covering a lot of it already, so if you haven't seen some of the previous videos, make sure to check out the playlist down below as we prep and continue to get ready for the launch of Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. I will be playing Stalker 2 up until December 6th, when I will be starting my journeys into the world of Indiana Jones once again. I may try to find time to rewatch the movies before that. In the meantime, we got lots of other games to play. So 7 a.m. Central Time every single day on YouTube and Twitch. I multi-stream in those places, and it is my full-time job. Thanks to those of you for tuning in and keeping me on the air full-time. I'll see you guys in the next one. Stay safe. Happy gaming.